Like 500%. Turntable episode 2. This month we got Big Papa Varju, he's guitar making man of the show. Then Hank and Scott are gonna keep it hot with the wealth of knowledge you see. And Andrew and me, and don't forget Mr. Producer, Mick runs the funky show. Oh, well, they say you don't call on Google Hangouts, you don't speed into the mic, you don't go respond to those work emails, and you don't mess around with
I forgot that one line was in there.
Yes. Well, I mean, we have to acknowledge the history of the leagues and its highlights and lowlights.
Yeah. To everyone who catches that, thanks for sticking around for so long.
You're an OG, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, welcome back to the Turntable, episode 2. We have got some really interesting albums to talk about this week. Very varied, wouldn't you say, Brooklyn?
Yeah, there's a nice little mix here. I think all of them, or one of the things that I found listening to all these albums is how they're structured, and I think that these ones are divided into like two different groups as to like how they're arranged.
Yeah. So first of all, we were supposed to have Scott Harvey on. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, Scott could not be joining us today. He will be making an appearance on this episode, though, when we get around to his album. We also have our good friend, Jeff.
Speaking of OG.
An OG from Google Hangout days. I survived that, folks. So you guys I survived on Google Hangouts so StreamYard can run.
What was before Full Metal? Was it the Trial by Fire? Was that the one, the MC, like the... what was... Yeah, I forget. There was,
I don't know
about something before.
We're going to
that,
like the 2017 era. Like that's...
Yeah, this is before me. I was just at the tail end of Google Hangouts. We also have... Brooklyn, why don't you introduce our next guest?
So yeah, I go to a trivia at a bar called Hop Yard. I haven't been there about a month or so, but there's a host there. His name is Hank. He does a really good job of trivia, and you've actually had it before on the set list, so you recognize the voice. But yeah, I asked him to come back, and he's like, absolutely. So yeah.
And that's me. I can't say no to an opportunity to gush over some lesser known tunes, and this is another golden opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us today. Either of you guys can start with this. Any just like real quick thoughts before we go into the deep dive?
I mean, the varied is an understatement. I really didn't know. Well, I opened it up and 3 of the 5 albums are from 2023. So I thought I'd missed the brief entirely.
Yeah.
Because mine came from 41 years before that. But then just diving into each one, and like even within the albums themselves, there's a huge variety. I got to listen to, like, Arctic Monkeys is a band that I had never actually listened to before. I was only just ever aware of them. So I was able to enjoy some new tunes for the first time, and I thought it was a great experience.
Jeff, any thoughts as well?
I felt weird going with an album from 2023 because I don't listen to new music all that often, so it felt very out of character for me. But like kind of gauging the room, it kind of felt like I was like, let's try and go something more recent. But it was one of my favorites from that year. So, but like we said, like this is a very good varied list of just eclectic tastes and kind of all over the spectrum of musicality. Some good, some not so good. We're going to have discussions, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Great discussions.
I'm excited now. All right. Well, we're going to start with Brooklyn's album this episode. Brooklyn, tell us a little bit about AM by Arctic Monkeys.
Okay, so I'll give 2 reasons as to why I picked this album. First reason is that my brother, my younger brother, is a drummer. And he had a set in high school, and he played 2 songs. Mostly for practice. He played Holiday by Green Day, and he played one of the tracks off of this one, Arabella. And it was great. But also, and part of the reason why I invited Hank on this one is because I would say probably about 50% of the time we go to the Hop Yard, this album is playing, or it's like Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, or like another like big well-known album. So I just really wanted to talk about it. I've loved it since I've listened to it back like way back in high school. I just think it has some incredible rock anthems. Like I know Do I Want to Know has kind of gotten like memed to death a little bit, especially like the full like Ford F-150 commercials and whatnot. But I think you have a really good mix of like especially how like One for the Road and Arabella hits, because they're kind of like arranged in the same way, and it kind of sets up Arabella. Arabella's really, really cool song with obviously great drum fills, but the guitar lick, it has this great kind of like groove and flow, and you have like Number One Party Anthem, which is this really cool like inverse look on like, think about like fucking Pumped Up Kicks, where it's like happy song with like dark lyrics, and this one is like kind of like a dark, slow kind of slug, but it's about him like meeting a girl at a club and whatnot, and then it's just like the Number One Party Anthem being the generic song that we playing at the background at the time. I like the progression of it as well. It kind of starts with them kind of getting to the club. He finds the girl and kind of like obsesses with her and kind of attracts to her and whatnot, and then you have like the really cool closer of like I Want to Be Yours, and I like the atmosphere of that because I feel like it's kind of like it's stylized as kind of like the drive or like the ride home from the night out, and you're kind of just processing it as you're like under like this kind of the street lights going down. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with it, but I'm curious to hear everybody else's thoughts.
I'll start us off with this one. I really like the album. I personally don't have it as like great, but there's a lot of songs on here that really, really did connect hard with me. Songs particularly like Fireside and I Want It All, I thought were like really, really strong. Ones that I had never heard before. I mean, honestly, Do I Want to Know is, I think, the best song the Arctic Monkeys have ever made. Yes, I know that's a bold statement considering some of their early work. Yes, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that's what they asked for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I stand by that. God damn it. There is a few songs on here though that like I don't know if it's the production or the actual songwriting. It might actually be the actual songwriting.
Okay.
Because you start to see where Arctic Monkeys kind of go from here into that kind of like where they're at now, especially with like Tranquility Base Casino and Hotel. And the thing I also noticed about this one is that you really feel the influence on the sleeve of this album. Like David Bowie and Elvis Costello really played a part.
I can see Bowie.
Yeah, really played a part in like the musicality of this album. So I think it's really good. I think it's a very strong album. And whoever wants to go next can just hop in.
Well, yeah, I noticed a ton of Bowie all over this thing, and then of course in my set list appearance, I gave the controversial take that Bowie was my most overrated artist. But I found that I dug it. I was completely dropped on a desert island of Arctic Monkeys, not knowing this album all that well. Like I've heard some of the songs. I think I knew Are You Mine? I knew like Do I Want to Know? And I knew Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High? But don't know anything before or since. And I actually really dug it. I listened to it a few times. One of them was on my walk to work, and you're stepping with that thumping drum. I played the drums through high school, and I definitely have an appreciation for fat drums, and they're fat. And I really did dig it. I think my favorite track, I really liked Number One Party Anthem, Into Mad Sounds. Both of those hit for me. They reminded me of like not his most recent album, but the penultimate Father John Misty, in that kind of it is like you're on something and things are moving slow and fast, and you've got this kind of haze about you, but there's a clarity. And in number one party anthem, it's the girl in the club, and everything else is kind of drowned out, and it is this kind of floaty vibe. I really dug that. That was a surprise for me because I only knew the chart toppers, and it's all about just that heavy bass and those sexy licks, and then having these like pretty chill kind of vibey tunes in the middle of that. I really liked it. See, then I have the thing where having listened to Do I Want to Know a million times passively, listening to it actively, found that it didn't go to that place I wanted it to. It had this like sugar glass ceiling that I just wanted it to bust through and make me have to turn down my headphones. And it never quite got there in the way some of the other tracks did. I just thought they were holding back a little bit. And you know what? It's your radio song. It has over 2 billion listens on Spotify. You can't push it too hard. It's the same. I was a big Portugal the Man fan.
Yeah.
Leading up to Feel It Still. And then that one came out. I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're pulling their punches a little bit. And then that became the most listened to song for like 2 years in a row. So what do I know? But I had a similar thing with Do I Want to Know? But Are You Mine, Mad Sounds, number one party anthem, even Knee Socks, I really ended up digging. Good. Yeah, that was a surprise because I got to the end of that one and I was like, wow, that was a pretty solid album. And then there's I Want to Be Yours, which was not my favorite. I was like, you ended on Knee Socks. Like that was my take, but I dug it. I really did.
So I remember when this album like came out, it was probably about 2013 was. It was like September of 2013. Yep. It wouldn't be a show with me.
It's in his contract. Yeah.
It's in his contract. He's like the Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's gonna need an extra fee. Yeah.
Yep. Come on over. So yeah, when this album came out, I was in my final year of college, and I remember my one animation teacher was super into this album and was telling everybody to listen to it. So, and he was very garage rocky, very much into like the Strokes. And I remember we used to talk about like bands like that a lot. So I remember he used to play this album a lot as like a warm up for people to come into class. And it wore its welcome pretty quickly. But over time, it still had its luster and it still had things that were good with it. But like, yeah, this is probably like the first time I revisited this album probably since college with that. But there is a lot to like with the album. Like Do I Want to Know? Like it's kind of like the one everybody always knows about. Yeah, 2 billion streams on Spotify as I'm looking at it as of filming right now. It's been done to death. It's been memed, like we said, but it's always the deep tracks for me that I always look at. It's like, what can be like the ones that really hit for me? Brooklyn already said it, Arabella, like that to me is like the real standout track for me on this album. It has the most tonal shifts in that, and it kind of showcases a lot of what they can do outside of just, you know, the fancy drum patterns and the fancy guitar licks. Like they can have a little bit of like a tempo change. They can show kind of like some dynamic ranges, which really works really well. One for the Road, another really good song from them. Yeah, I agree with Hank. Number one party anthem into Mad Sounds. It's kind of like a good like continuation, almost like keeping it as like one continuous song. That really works. Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High? That's always a really good one. That's just a fun song.
That one was this close to being the best one.
That was within like my top 3. That one and Knee Socks I always thought was like a really fun, just like good toe tapper kind of song. Yep. But overall, like the album, like it's a good album. I don't think it to me, this kind of like feels like when the Strokes came out with First Impressions of the Earth back in 2006, it kind of feels like overproduced garage rock in a way. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of getting a little too polished in that way, and it's kind of like making it seem like it's like they're kind of hiding something. And it almost feels like with this album, it's like I think people are trying to catch on with what Arctic Monkeys really was. Like it's like, okay, it's just a lot of fancy little guitar licks and some like, really groovy drums. Outside of that, it's like, okay, what else can you go from here? And that's where I kind of think like this album was kind of like the tipping point a little bit for them in my eyes.
Yeah, I think when I can't remember the lead singer's name right now, but when I feel like sometimes he tries to rely a little bit too much on his swagger. And I think that's sometimes the biggest flaw of this album. It's kind of like this, hey, check how cool I am. Well,
I think of what's the guy from the 1975? Like that's the vibe I get.
Matt Healy.
Matt Healy, that's his name.
Yeah,
yes.
that guy.
You can just hear how cool they're trying to be.
Yeah.
So cool.
All right.
So I just wanted to say one more thing. I really like Knee Socks and Fireside. I both love their rhythms, both in different ways, because I think Knee Socks kind of leans into the more synth side of it, and then Fireside is really more kind of like a funk. But the one that I actually wanted to be the one that I thought would be the best to be the closer would be Snap Out of It. I just think from a musician's perspective, it's the most technical in terms of like what's going on. Like it leans into a lot of jazz elements, and like you mentioned earlier that it has the Bowie influence. I think this is probably the heavy of the Bowie influences, and it really works. And just kind of the descent of like almost madness that it kind of goes into.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
No. You first.
I was gonna kind of wax poetic about this kind of era of music, and that there was a lot of Bowie influence in kind of popular culture around then. And it was, again, I think it was right before he died even. But the way that this album ended on my like Spotify and then kicked straight into the Black Keys, and it was like, oh right, there was a time where like everything kind of sounded
everybody
like
wanted
this.
to be like that kind of like Black Keys song. Like even like a song on here reminded me a lot of like Gold on the Ceiling from the Black Keys.
Man,
I forget which one it was.
There was an album, I think it was like around this time, where one of the members of the Black Keys produced the Sheepdogs' like second big release.
Oh, Dan Auerbach?
Yeah, and it was just it was a Black Keys flavored Sheepdogs album, and it's not my favorite because they had such a unique sound at the time, and this was just how you had to sound if you wanted to be a rock band on the top 40. And a lot of bands made it work. Arctic Monkeys made it work. Black Keys made it work, but not everyone kind of translated into that.
That's a shame too, because Sheepdogs are incredible live.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And they just went right back to doing their stoner rock right afterwards.
For the Americans that don't know who Sheepdogs are, imagine if like the Allman Brothers traveled to the future and kind of made a band.
Yeah. Absolutely. I dig it. And just listen to them, because listen to that for that Learn and Burn was their big album. They're the first unsigned band on the cover of the Rolling Stone. It's a great album. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm interested for sure. I'm definitely going to be checking them out on Spotify.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap this one up in a pretty bow. Brooklyn, quickly give us your favorite, least favorite, since we don't have a worst song in this show. So favorite, least favorite, and give it a rating between 1 through 10.
Least favorite, I think I'm gonna go with Do I Want to Know? It went down the most on re-listen. Favorite, I think, is still going to be Arabella. It's even with Snap Out of It gained the most on re-listen. And then rating, I think it's a solid 8 out of 10.
Okay. Hank, let's go to you next.
All right. I'm going to say for favorite track, I got to go with Number One Party Anthem. That one really caught my eye, caught my ear. And then for least favorite track, I'm going to double up. I am also going to say, Do I Want to Know? I just kept wanting it to turn it up to 11, and it hung out at the 10. It teased me too much. Album on a whole, I'm going to go for a 6.5. I will listen again.
Okay. Jeff, let's go to you.
I think I already kind of gave away my hand earlier. I said favorite track on the album is easily Arabella in my eyes. I would say just like the tonal shifts overall. It really showcased them dynamically in terms of songwriting. Worst, I was tempted to go with Do I Want to Know, but it almost feels too easy to go with that one.
No, go ahead, do it.
All right, fine, we'll do it. You know what? We'll do it. Do I Want to Know is probably
Do it for the Vine.
favorite. Do it for the Vine. We'll do it for fun, y'all. But a rating for this one, I'm gonna give it a solid 7.5.
Okay. Well, screw you all. Do I Want to Know is the best song on this album.
Hey, this is what we're here for.
Yeah.
I love the tension in that song. I think the tension is really what makes that song click. For least favorite, honestly, it's the closing track. I Want to Be Yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the one that just kind of like fell into the background the most for me.
It could have been good. It could have been really good, but it seemed like it kind of just it almost lost it a little bit.
Even you put it somewhere else on the album, and I'm gonna have a more memorable experience.
I think actually between Number One Party Anthem and Mad Sounds might be the best spot for it, because it could be used to kind of signify like the kind of the paralysis, I guess, of falling in love. So
it's a good transition too. It's short enough, like you're not losing the vibe. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. But sorry, your score of the whole album.
It's all good.
Give me talking and it's over.
No, this is what we want on this show. No dead air. So yeah, I think that I would give it a solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right, but with that, we are going to move on to the album that Scott Harvey had brought, which was Honey by Samia. Luckily, Scott gave us a very short video, so we'll play that right now.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't make it to the show, but I hope you guys enjoyed my choice of album, which is Samia's Honey, her sophomore album. I'm a big fan of Samia. I think she has such a strange and interesting voice. Songs like Breathing Song, that long note that she holds on at the end of the song is insane, honestly. But then she has some really fun, light pop songs like Honey, like the title track, which might be my favorite song. I think lyrically her songs are interesting and her voice is like nobody else's.
Okay, thank you, Scott, so much for sending that video and for suggesting this album. Because we've got a lot to talk about here.
I had a really interesting time with this one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have some good to talk about.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so this album made me understand what is it that makes like a Scott Harvey song, because like I know that like Common People is one of his favorite ones, and he's a big fan of Arcade Fire, and then this one really kind of solidified the idea of like the instrumentation is pretty simple, just because of like the keys that they're in, like C, F, and G. So they're like they're not trying to do too much there. But what I find with a lot of Scott songs is even with that, there is a heavier emphasis on songwriting and storytelling. So I think there's something like more to grab onto in the lyrics in there. And I thought there's a really good stretch between, I think it's like Pink Balloon and like Scott was mentioning the title track. I think there's a really good run of songs in there. And then, but before Pink Balloon, there's one like not great song, and I'll let everybody else talk before I get to that, because that's going to be a rant.
I think I know what song that is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hank, how about you go next?
Well, geez. Okay. I had a really interesting one with this one. I had a no middle sliders experience. I either like really enjoyed a track or would banish it to the land of wind and ghosts. There were a few that I'm just ready to put behind me, but then there's a few that I'm like happy to save. But first, because I just can't help myself, I looked up all these musicians because I hadn't heard of any of them. I knew Arctic Monkeys, but I didn't know kind of their deal. Samia, I found out, is the daughter of Kathy Najimy, the voice actress of Peggy Hill from King of the Hill.
Oh my God!
And
So we got
also in Sister Act.
Yes, we got a Nepo baby on our hands here. Just saying. I had to say it. But I digress. There were some songs on here that I really dug, but the problem was that a lot of them reminded me of other musicians that I would rather be listening to.
Oh, I've got one in particular, but go ahead.
So some of the songs that I kind of took note at. I enjoyed the Breathing Song and the Dream Song. I also really liked Na Na Na. Na 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 particularly, and the breathing song reminded me of a group called the Staves. It's a trio. They're all sisters from England, and they're just phenomenal. They're just like angels, and they just sing these beautiful, like layered harmonies. And this is just one person, so you're not going to get that. But those songs had that kind of ethereal aesthetic done really well. But man, like, it's the you told me that. I'm like, why are you putting Y's in every word? And that just got super deep. And I loved the first half of Sea Lions. And when it started doing the like word association thing, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And then it was like 3 minutes of that. And it was like, okay, now it's way overdone it.
Underscores did that on their album last year, and it was better use of that technique, honestly.
Yeah, and I think there's a good way of doing that, and I think it's turning the volume down a little bit, it's shortening it, it's singing over it, but just sitting there with like really lofty synths, listening to someone play word association got old fast. There are tracks that I am going to revisit here, but I don't know. It seemed like it's just a lot of kind of, I don't know. I don't want to be too like mean, but there were just some complainy tracks.
Be mean.
No,
Listen, Hank, I need to give you a crash course here for 30 seconds. There's a man in this community by the name of Caleb Coho. Actually, there's two people, Caleb Coho and Cody Newberry. You can't get as ravishing and as mean as they can. So you fire away.
No, there was some complaining going on, and knowing that she's the daughter of Kathy Najimy, I'm like, listen, I believe you've had hard times, but my mother was not in Emmy Award nominated TV show King of the Hill or Sister Act, and that's it. That's my big issue, is that it's like kind of get over it. But no, there's some artistic merit to this. It's a sophomore album. She's like 27 years old, which I guess, whatever. Like, you're new in the industry. I can see her going far. I can see her breaking through, but I don't think any of these songs are going to be the one that kind of thrusts her into the next level.
So I'm going to make sure that Jeff goes last here.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll build.
Yeah, we'll build.
You're going to build this one already.
Yeah, we're going to build this one up. I agree with Hank. There is some good artistic qualities to this album. I think Samia does have a good knack for like up-tempo pop, because all the up-tempo songs on this had like I thought they had a sticky melody.
Honey.
Yeah, Honey. Whatever the one after the first album. Now I see what you were saying.
Yeah, there you go. I wasn't gonna.
That wasn't intentional. That was.
There's
layers to the.
I'm so mad at. I usually love. Okay. But yeah, so I think that she does have a good ear for pop music. Unfortunately, like all of this mid-tempo / slower tempo songs all started to blend together and sound almost exactly alike.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, my biggest problem with this album is the production. I think the production on this album is not great. Except for one song, which I picked as my favorite song on this album, which I'll get to at the end. But I was doing a little research, and I found that she's currently touring with somebody that if they were behind her in the production booth, I think that she really could break through with something that's truly great. And that's Jack Antonoff. I think if you got Jack Antonoff's production behind her, Bleachers, if you got his production behind her and got her to like reel it in a little bit when it comes to the songwriting, I think that she truly could have something that was genuinely great. But in the meantime, I think that this was a okay album with a lot of possible potential behind it. Hey Jeff, what do you think of this?
I'm gonna crack the knuckles. Here we go.
Let's go.
Sleeves are rolling up.
So here we go. All right, I'm gonna start with the nice stuff first because I did find some nice in this. I did like one particular song, which was my favorite song on this album. I'm not gonna give it away just yet, but I thought it was the best way to showcase her range and a little bit more of the songwriting like that.
Genuinely talented singer.
Genuinely talented singer. I will give her that. I just feel like you said, the production on this just feels way too overblown to the point where it's like kind of like you're hiding something. But here's the problem I have with singers like this. Her and like Billie Eilish and Lana Del Rey, it's these incessantly whiny kind of vocals and these incessantly just monotone, just I gotta talk like this and I'm gonna sing like this because it's so monotone and melancholy. I can't take it anymore. I just can't do this kind of music. This is to women what men is to like Cree, like the Yarling. This is, I'll say, like,
no.
Women,
are you trying to summon Jim Green on this call?
if Jim's listening to this, he will know exactly what I'm saying. He can vibe with me on this one. I can't. I'll say, like, this is like it's almost like Yarling in a way, but it almost sounds like cats. So this is more like meowing in a way. It's like because they kind of go like row, row, row. It gets dragging after a while, and like you said, the songs just kind of blend in some ways. It just becomes just kind of just be happy. Be happier because it's like underneath all this melancholy and sadness, there is somebody who is talented here. I can hear a talented singer underneath here. Stop chasing the trends of trying to sound like another Billie Eilish or another Lana Del Rey. Try to be something like to break free from this mold and use the lyrics just a little bit better with a little bit better of a production and a little bit better of an arrangement. Like this album just did not work. Scott, I'm glad you're not on this call because I would just rip this to shreds in front of you and watch you cry. This is the first time I've been mad at an album.
Wow.
In a long time.
I'm specifically glad he's not here because you mentioned Lana Del Rey, and that's another big artist of his. So
I know. I know. That's why I brought up like Lana Del Rey and Billie Eilish and all of them because I'm like, I can't get into this style of singing and this style of music.
Real quick,
does not work.
I do want to bring something up because I wish Scott was here because I wanted to say this to him. So I suggested Scott listen to another artist a while ago, like a few months ago, and he finally gave him a listen and was like, it's fine. That artist's name is Charlie Adams, and her album Bullseye, which is so tonally it's kind of similar, where it's like the voice is kind of like washed in reverb, but there's so much more like sticky melodies and interesting ideas and power behind some of the instrumentation. And I'm just so confused as to why this works, but that album doesn't. If y'all get the chance to listen to Charlie Adams' album Bullseye, it's genuinely like great, like pop emo kind of thing. It is genuinely like one of the best albums of the last couple of years, in my opinion. So I'm so confused as to why this one works for him, but that album, he's just like, it's fine, I guess.
Oof, hey, nay, mockery, hey, yo.
Anyone have any final thoughts on this before we close this up?
I need to do my rant on Charm You. And
yes, Charm You.
What a fucking
not the song I thought you were going for.
Not the song I thought you were okay.
No, Charm You is fucking grating, and it's a simple choice of like they have her do 2 vocal tracks, and one of them is delayed a little bit, and it's very noticeable, and it's like offsetting. It takes away any momentum that she's trying to build, and it's so weird because the next like 6 songs after that don't do it. So it's clearly like a production choice, and it's like, why are you doing this? because you're starting off your album. Like Killer Freak Out, I thought was fine. That's where I got kind of like the gist of the album, or kind of like the synopsis of it.
Jeff and I think we're on the same page right now.
We made the exact same face at the exact same time.
We did.
Yeah, Charm You is just it's rough. It's like nails on a chalkboard.
Okay. So with that being said, let's wrap this up. I will go first this time. So my favorite song on the album is Dream Song. I think that was the song where the production just seemed the most connected, genuine, real, not trying too hard to be someone else. I thought that like this was Samia. This was the one where I was like, oh, okay, now I get who you are. And my least favorite one is actually Kill Her Freak Out. That one was the one I was like, you're trying so hard right now. Please stop. So overall rating, I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. I think there's like just enough good qualities to push it into positive territory. Once again, I think if she gets a better producer behind her, please Jack Antonoff. I think that there's a lot of potential behind her, but I don't think this is the album to actually do it for me. Let's go to Jeff next.
Okay, so best song on this album. I said it was not easy to pick a favorite on this one, but the one song for me that stood out was To Me It Was. That was kind of the one song where I kind of felt like it really showed like somebody who does have some musical talent behind her and had a good strong structure within the song itself, and it actually felt like the most listenable of this album. Worst, it's Killer Freak Out. My God, 24 seconds of just horrible organ in the beginning, and the lyrics.
Yeah.
The lyrics. And I would say, like, I think of Olivia Rodrigo when she tries to swear, and she just sounds so pathetic.
Oh,
this is exactly.
I wanted to bring that up.
This is what I think of. It's like you sound pathetic when you're trying to swear like this. It just doesn't come across as meaningful. It just comes across as just lazy. But rating for this, I'll give it a 2.5 out of 10. This is like, again, I'll give it just because, you know, there's some musical talent here in some respect, but this album just does not work whatsoever for me at all.
Hank.
I'm gonna stand up and I will defend. I liked Killer Freak Out. It reminds me of I Hope Your Husband Dies by Amigo the Devil. Which is like, I mean, he's great, and if you want real lyrics that are like, oh man, what's going on, but it's because he bases all of his songs off real serial killers. It's a great album, but that's a sidetrack. I love a weird song, especially to open an album with that. It's bold. I dig it. It's not my favorite song, but I needed to stand up for it. My favorite song, I'm gonna go with the Breathing Song. Dream Song was a close second, but for me, Breathing Song, it crystallized kind of the themes of the album for me the most. It is that lonely feeling, but it's not like all hope is lost lonely. It's that like, don't worry, I'm gonna get back. I'm just in a spot right now. I'm stuck. And that last note that they mentioned is that's a killer note that stuck with me. That woke me up after the couple songs before it, because I didn't love To Me It Was, didn't love the second half of Sea Lions, and then worst song, I'm gonna go Mad at Me only because it does.
Wow.
Yeah, because it does.
That would have been my 2.
Oh wow, there you go. It does break the theme for me of that kind of isolation, because you've got somebody else in, and it is that like Caribbean beat at the back half, and it was just like, all right, this is your like, I'm gonna phone one in that people can put on in the club and they won't cry, and that just I didn't get. That was a little one-dimensional for me, that one.
Okay, and Brooklyn.
I mean, like Breathing Song is a really good song. I'll reiterate the ending of it is incredible. My favorite song, though, I think is probably To Me It Was. It actually continues the streak of a song surprising me with the amount of country that it has.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was a nice little mix in there. And then I definitely revealed my hand when I said Charm You is a rough old go. And then album rating 5 out of 10. It's fine. Half of it is good. Half of it is not good.
I realized I forgot to give it my album rating. I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna split the difference between you guys because I think it is not quite 50-50, but I'm gonna save Breathing Song. That's on my playlist. Everything else, let it become mist. Let the next album impress me.
Andrew mentioned 5.5, and I was like, I'm going to be a little bit pretentious here with 5. And then Jeff was like, hold my beer.
Well, that's it.
Let me be the grumpy old man on my
soapbox
now.
Because I'm going down the middle of like 5 is like, oh, it's fine. And it's like this, I wouldn't quite, I'm like, I didn't like this, but there were things to like. I think that's where 4 kind of lands me.
Yeah. I'm just shocked that I have the highest score technically.
Hey.
Nice, Barr. You're being way
wow.
No.
I guess I am. All right, let's move on to something a little bit different, a little bit more atmospheric, a little bit more heavy. Jeff, tell us about Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token.
All right, so this was a band that really kind of took off, especially with this album. This is kind of one of those bands, for those who are not familiar with Sleep Token, this is kind of a band in the same style of like Ghost or Slipknot, or even if you want to go Kiss. Their identities are a mystery. They are a band that are shrouded in secrecy. If you do your digging, you'll find out who they are, but it's more fun to just kind of play along with the mythos of this because they're essentially playing like we are essentially like a cult for this god known as sleep. And each album essentially is what they call an offering to this god. So with this is actually the third part of what's known as it's more of like a trilogy of albums. So Take Me Back to Eden. This came out just last year, and it was met with very mixed reception when it came out. And it was kind of surprising because I thought there was a lot to love with this album, but I can understand why people didn't like this album too. Because when you're comparing it to albums, they first came out with Sundowning, which was a very good introduction album from them, and then This Place Will Become Your Tomb. That really cemented them as one of like the bands to really watch. So when this album was announced, Taking Back to Eden, a lot of people were really paying attention to see if this was going to be a really good album or not, and it was just so unbalanced as far as what people expected it from it. But it opens up really good with Chokehold. I think that's a really strong opening track. It really kind of emphasizes what the band can be, not just a heavy band, but also showing that they have a lot of like R&B kind of hip-hoppy elements, even trip hop. Then they go into The Summoning, which I think is probably one of the best songs that they have made to date. It is just such a good up and down, hill and valley of what they can show in terms of just great guitars, as well as just one of the most underrated drumming you can listen to, because there is some complex stuff going on. And then you have a song like Aqua Regia, which is just so off kilter from what you would expect from something like heavy and like what you've already heard from before. And then you have a song right after that with Vor, which is just straight heavy metal and what you would expect to hear out of this. But then they start going and showing a lot more of like where their influences lie and how they can kind of blend this with modern music and modern rock metal music. So songs like Ascensionism, The Apparition, even the title track Take Me Back to Eden really showcases a lot of atmospheric rock. And then I think the closing track in Euclid, it really showcases strong vocals from Vessel, which is just really, it shows a lot of dynamic range. It shows a lot of good atmospheric tension and kind of like the best way to close out this chapter of this phase of the band. I always wanted to know what people thought of this, because when you look at the albums, this is the one where everybody's like, they have something to say about it. And I'm dying to hear what people have to say about this one.
All right, let's open the floor because I kind of want to go last.
Oh.
Okay. Or no, actually, Hank, you go first.
No, you. I was saying no. I love when someone is like, I need to be I don't want to kind of muddy the waters of everything leading up to it.
Okay, so Take You Back to Eden made me realize something about metal in particular for me. Metal kind of rides this like really fine line of like when it gets like either like too heavy or like just right. Reminds me a lot of like hot sauce. It's like I need to slowly train my palate, I guess, to get deeper into the waters and whatnot. And I thought this did a really good job of establishing like the groove on a couple of tracks. Like, I guess is 4 the drummer, or would it be like
2?
3?
2. Yes.
Okay, so 2. Yeah, so he's doing a really good job on Chokehold and just kind of having that groove come in there. The other ones as well, taking back to Eden, the self-titled track, does a really, really good job as well. I think you have a really good stretch from like Vor to the Apparition. Are You Really Okay is a really fun breather song. Vor I didn't like initially, but on the second time, I kind of understood why they put in the screaming parts where it was, because it really was to inflict like the emotion of like pain, and especially like getting into some of the lyrics and whatnot. This album in particular as well, like we were talking about how an album is kind of structured, like and was kind of like this one cohesive story with start to end. I found this one just kind of went a little bit back and forth because it had this like ethereal kind of story, like, and Jeff already mentioned it was kind of like the cult setting. One, like I found they went from like kind of like lovey-dovey, like I embrace you kind of thing. From the other side, there would be kind of like this like hurt and kind of like anguish. So they always kind of played back and forth with that. Last thing I want to say, the summoning, the breakdown, it's so fucking good. Especially, it's so satisfying. And as someone who is 30 now, I can't headbang as hard as I used to. So it's the right speed. You don't hurt your neck as much. I could listen to that on loop. It's just so satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hank?
I'll step in. I have, you said that people had very mixed emotions about this, and I'm one of those people, because I think the first 5 songs are really solid. I think, Chokehold, I really dug. The summoning's awesome. Like, I was reminded of a lot of different things with this album. I love the lore. I had to look it up. I love any group like that has lore.
Yeah.
I'm a big Church of the Cosmic Skull fan, if anybody's familiar. They've got a whole backstory. They're putting the ABBA and Sabbath. Give them a listen. Honest to God, you'll hear it. But the summoning reminded me of the soundtrack to Risk of Rain 2. I don't know if everybody's ever played that.
Yeah.
It's a video game. There's some very like ethereal, like heavy. I really dug that. Aqua Regia is as light as I wanted it to go. And it just walked that line really nicely. I love the keys that came in there. Vor was wild. I saw the word Vor in an album, and I was like, oh, we're going to like a very different place than I've been with most music. But then I felt the wheels kind of fell off in the back half. I thought, like, I don't know. I love Ascensionism's the like trap metal bit at like, I really took me out of it. It just put me in a different place that the first 5 tracks had already established. And then I was suddenly in this other room, and then they kept pulling me out with the Apparition, which I really dug, and then DYWTYLM, which then pushed me back out of the room. It felt like the second half couldn't really decide what it was, and that's definitely a choice. And this is a band that has skills in more than one. They're not just a metal band. They're not just a rock band. They have the skills, but I thought for an hour-long kind of, not a concept album, but an album with a through line, it got a little distracted here and there. I say if this was like 45 minutes, I would be a big fan. I think there's just some fat you could trim just off of some songs, not even some songs in their entirety. And then it ends really solid. I dug Take Me Back to Eden reminds me of, it's the Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, has like a 13-minute long song called Salt the Earth. The first 5 minutes are just one bass line the whole way through. And a lot of people would get really annoyed by that, but I love it. Like, if you have a reason to keep me on the line, I will keep listening. And Take Me Back to Eden was absolutely that. It ended really strong. It started really strong, but it just... I just felt a little distracted in the middle. If they put out an album of those types of songs, of Ascensionism, Are You Really Okay, DYWTYLM. I think that'd be a really solid kind of accompanying piece to this one. But that was I had some opinions. I really dug a lot of it, and I wanted to love all of it, but some parts just kind of took me out of the story.
I agree with like the length for sure. It definitely could be trimmed by probably about another good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But you gotta go for it. You gotta swing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely.
And so I have nothing bad to say about what they tried to do here. It wasn't all for me.
Okay.
So I actually knew Sleep Token before Jeff submitted this album. I had heard a few of the songs on this particular album actually beforehand, so I was familiar. I will say that out of everything that I've ever heard from Sleep Token, I still think that their best song overall is Hypnosis.
I was between this album and This Place Will Become Your Tomb, but I was like, this is such a polarizing one. I want to hear what people say.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that you picked the polarizing one. Because there are moments that are just absolutely spectacular. The Summoning was the first song I ever heard off of this album. A friend of mine is a huge Sleep Token fan, and I used to be able to, every once in a while at work, I used to be able to get to control the music before customers came in. And so they asked me to play The Summoning, and I was like, okay, cool. And immediately I was like, this fucking rocks. I also love the lore behind them. I found them mostly because of Drumeo, the YouTube channel, because 2 was on that, and it was just like a really cool.
Go watch that. If anybody has never watched that, watch that. He is such a technically refined drummer. He is so underrated.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, like genuinely, I was like super impressed. And just like the whole interview process was like, it was weird because 2 was like, you know, he had the mask on and all that stuff, but the distorted voice. So I was like, oh, right, yeah, let's go. And there were some high highs on this album, like high highs. And then there were moments and I'm going to piss people off when I say this.
Oh boy.
Do it.
To kind of like steal a joke from Crash Thompson. I don't want to like all credit to Crash Thompson for creating this phrase. Unfortunately, there were moments where I felt like they were attacked by the Imagine Dragon.
Wow.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
Old strategy, Cotton. Let's see if this pays off.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they were trying to be Imagine Dragons, not at all. But there were moments where the production, it was just like overproduced to the point where it was like chrome. And it really kind of like made the entire album just like really uneven because of that. When they really get into like the grittiness of it, it hits so hard. And I'm not saying that all of the slicker production moments are bad. There are some moments where it actually really works, like on Granite. But it was just those moments really took me out of the album experience as a whole whenever they would pop up.
I want to clap back on Granite for a second, and I want to kind of put this question out to the panel, because where the line kind of tips for me is whether or not if the song is very like genty or not, and you have a very fine line of whether or not you get there or not. I found the breakdown for Granite just a little bit too much, just like hitting the root note and like doing weird sounds. And I was curious if anybody else felt that way, because I think there's more great ones than there are bad, but I think that's the only one that I'm like, I can kind of do without.
Could have been better.
I'm with you on that one. I think that's
I'll agree.
pretty, yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But that's my thoughts. As I said, great highs. Like the highs on this are fantastic. The summoning, Vor, Are You Really Okay? Take Me Back to Eden. It's even the closing track, which I can never pronounce right. So
I think it's just Euclid. That's what I always say it is.
Euclid.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Anyone else have any like last thoughts on this before we sail off?
No, this had some saves for me. I really dug it, and it's going to be one that I'm going to have to check out the other albums just to get the whole story and pick out those diamonds. And it's not even picking out diamonds. It's moving aside the sand. Is that there's a lot of stuff that I really dug, but yeah, there's just a couple things that lost me. But I'll be going back to this.
I agree with Barr though. Hypnosis is probably one of the best songs from the previous album. Definitely check that one out.
Absolutely.
I would also say that Euclid is probably my favorite closer of all the albums that we're talking about today.
Okay. Fair.
I dig it.
Fair.
Yeah, dig it. All right. So I guess I'll start us off with this one. So my favorite song from this album is Are You Really Okay? There was just something about that melody was perfect. Like the production, like where everything was arranged in the mix, just like really hit. That guitar line is just so good. And I think it's one of the better vocal performances from Vessel. Yeah, that one just like really created a mood and an atmosphere and a story that I just like really dug. Worst was Easy for me, and I refuse to call it by the way it's actually titled. Do You Wish That You Loved Me? The DW, whatever the stupid acronym. I hate that
all the
acronym
letters
so much. Yeah, that one was by far and away my least favorite song on the album. I don't hate it, but it was just the one that was like, it's the one that like dragged me under the most. Jeff, we should have started with you.
Oh, you're good. Album. Don't worry about it. No, you're fine. No. You never gave your rating for it either.
It's still an 8. It's still an 8 out of 10. Solid 8 out of 10. Great album. Really enjoyed it a lot, even though I think it's a little inconsistent.
I agree. Yeah, I think I already kind of gave my hand away. Favorite song on this album easily is The Summoning. Everything from the guitar work, the bass work, the incredible drumming in this one. Again, if there's anything you can take away from this band, they have one of the best drummers in the rock metal scene right now, bar none. Give them a listen for sure. And Barr, I'm gonna agree with you. The worst one is DYTYLM. That's just that's probably like when Hank said like the second half of this album really kind of brings you down. That's a definite. I agree with that 100%. Usually, I think it's right after it's Ascensionism kind of is where it can get kind of like people start to lose it a little bit, and then it kind of goes up and down and up and down. But yeah, DYTYLM is kind of like the weakest one on this album. There's a lot to like with it, but it's enough. But I can see what you said more so with the polish of it. Not necessarily Imagine Dragony, but overproduced, kind of synthetic, I guess is the best way to say it. But a rating for this one, it's not their best one for sure, but it's still a very good album out of the three that they have. I'd give it a solid 8 though.
Okay, let's go to Brooklyn next.
All right. So my favorite is actually funny they mentioned it, Jeff. My favorite song is probably Ascensionism. I love the ending of it. It kind of just does the classic like cut out the tension, and then build it back up, and then that ending breakdown as well. Just very nice and chuggy. My least favorite, I'm probably gonna have to go with you guys as well. Do you wish that you loved me? I think it's probably the weakest produced on the album. I like what it's writing about. I just think they like the keys kind of throw me off on that one as well. But yeah.
Okay. And Hank.
Oh, what's your album? What's your full album score?
Yeah,
full album score. I give this like a 7 out of 10.
Okay. All right, Hank. Now let's go to you.
I'm gonna say I really dug Chokehold. I thought it really kind of put my head through the wall, which is how an album like this should. I was
you in a chokehold.
Absolutely. I was immediately invested and it held on to that investment for a long time. But again, it did lose me. And where it lost me was at my least favorite track, which is Ascensionism. I'm sorry. Do You Wish You Love Me is number 2, easily for that. But it was just the trap beat that I've heard 100 other times coming in. And it just, that's when it was like, okay, you might be stepping out of your comfort zone here, which I have a huge amount of respect for. But I was like, I came here to chug and to headbang, and I've just kind of lost that, which is not to say I didn't enjoy the album. On the whole, I want to give it a conditional 6.5. I think you chop some time off. I think you refocus a little bit. You don't have to add anything. You got to take away a little bit, and I could see it being an 8.
Okay, so with that being said, Hank, we're actually going to be going to your album next.
Sure.
Tell us about "Watch Your Step" by Ted Hawkins.
So I picked "Watch Your Step" because when I was kind of given the opportunity to do this show, which I'm very grateful for. I saw it as an opportunity I got to shout out someone that I don't know if I know anyone else who has heard a single song by this guy. This was my album of the summer of this past year. I was doing a lot of working with my hands out in the sun, getting a good sweat on, and something about this was just like cold lemonade. I was just so at home listening to this. Sweet Baby was the song that I got first just on some playlist, and I was just immediately, okay, you have my full attention. I need to hear the rest of this. And then the more that you learn about this guy, Ted Hawkins is one of those kind of tragic stories of music pre-2000. If you've ever heard of Blaze Foley, he followed a similar trajectory of like always like so talented, such a great writer. He's been through so much, and every time he had a chance to kind of make it to that next level, he or one of his demons kind of got in the way, and then he died before he could ever really like be appreciated and get that recognition. This was his first album. It came out in 1982, but it was recorded 10 years prior. It was recorded in 71. Just through tapes. He was working with Sam Cooke's producer. But this guy grew up illiterate. He grew up abused. He was in prison from the age of 15 to 18 for stealing a leather jacket. He dealt with substance abuse and mental health crises his entire life. The day this album dropped, he was in a hospital for like a detox. Like that was his whole career. Every opportunity he had to get recognized, something in his life got in the way of that. And I think it's like his last album, which is his best known one, came out, I think, the day before he died. Like it's just one of those stories. And I wanted to tell it. And I think that there's a good variety of tunes here. I think that you've got some really great, just nice acoustic guitar and a song and a smile. And then you've got The Lost Ones, which is just like this crazy turn of just the darkest, but like realist. Like this is happening still to this day. These people are just being ignored by the system because they're poor, because they're a minority. And then immediately go into Who's Got My Natural Comb, which is another story about being like having a different hairstyle from everyone else and having to accommodate that. But to switch it into that and to have songs like Put It Across, which is just like the barest bones stripped down song, to TWA, which is just a cover of a airliner jingle, to the fact that this album is just patchwork of like a man who's been through so much. I just had to share. I love it so much.
So I'm gonna start. First question. You said that he worked with like Sam Cooke's producer.
Yeah, I think so. I think on this album or on the recordings that became this album.
You say that and it makes so much sense to me now. Like, right. The production on this album is phenomenal. Like, it is warm, but it is clear. It's like, it's so deeply personal. And you just feel that, like, every ounce of Ted Hawkins through this. You said this was like cold lemonade, and I don't think that there's an analogy that I could have come up with that was better than that.
Oh, wow.
It was spot on, because snaps. I loved this album so much. This is literally like right up my alley.
Oh, I love to hear that.
I had heard a snippet of one song beforehand because my friend Dan Baxter, who's going to be on a later episode, he like releases like a playlist through Instagram, and one of the songs from this album just happened to be on that playlist. The day after you dropped it in our chat, I was like, oh, okay. Man, oh God, his voice is just so phenomenal.
I love it. And they credit it, he credits it to, he sung on the beaches of California for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he says the salt and the sand wore his voice down, but it's like, I couldn't imagine it any other way. He's got such a perfect sound for what he sings.
It's got such a rich soulfulness to it. It just oozes charisma. I think some of these songs are just like I could not get over how instantly memorable they were. Songs like "Stop Your Crying" and "Sorry You're Sick." "Bring It On Home, Daddy." "Who's Got My Natural Comb" is such a fucking bop.
Yeah.
I love that piece so much. And like this is another album though where you can like feel the influences. You feel like the Sam Cooke, the Jackie Wilsons, the Benny Kings. But those are all people that I love and adore when it comes to their music. So yeah, this album was absolutely meant for me. Whoever wants to go next, just feel free to hop in.
Jeff, you go.
Okay. First of all, thank you for this recommendation of this album, because it made me want to pursue his music a little bit more. So I started listening then to Happy Hour and The Next 100 Years then. So
yeah, absolutely.
I love when I can get stuff like I never heard of Ted Hawkins before. And when I can get the opportunity to explore somebody who I didn't know, it just makes it much more enjoyable then, because it's like you're experiencing something new. You know, because you always say like, I want to go back to that moment where I watched Star Wars for the first time, or I heard Michael Jackson for the first time. This is kind of one of those moments where I'm like, this was such a fun and enjoyable album for a 38-minute album. Like it felt like it was a breeze, but it felt the best way you say it. It's like lemonade. This just felt refreshing, and it felt very needed in today's time.
Yeah,
like
it's a little cold out. Yeah.
Yes, like everything about it just seemed to just work so well with it. You could definitely, like, as soon as you mentioned the Sam Cooke stuff, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense now, because you get a lot of that like Southern Motown, even gospel at times. Like, you definitely get a lot of like that flair from him, almost like crony in like the voice in a way, like, like you can hear the pain in some of the songs, like you said, Put In a Cross, like, yeah, that's as like stripped down and as complete as you can, but it's honest and it feels like it's coming from somewhere genuine. But like I said, yeah, Who Got My Natural Comb? That's just a fun song to listen to. But one that I really like found interesting was the title track, Watch Your Step, because it had the acoustic version and then the full band version. And I found I'm like, there's a lot to like with each one, because, the acoustic version had a lot of like up-tempo-iness, and like he did some fun things with the guitar that made it stand out really well. And then you have the big band version, which it's like you can hear a lot more that's going on even with it then. But a lot of this album just really worked, and I loved his voice. His voice just seemed so genuine and is coming from a real place. And even like the fact that you said like this was definitely like a collection of like old demo tapes like from his days in the past, you could hear that in some of like the inconsistencies within like the arrangement of like the album as you go track to track to track, you can kind of hear like something's a little bit more. You can hear like the hiss of the analog a little bit versus something a little bit more polished. But I think that adds to the charm of it, and I like when you can get something like that. And it makes it just feel a little bit more authentic, and it makes it feel like he was trying to say something here. Like this is me throughout various phases, and I'm very glad I was able to find this album. So thank you very much for the recommendation. This is definitely what I'm going to listen to for sure.
My pleasure. And I'm going to do another. I know I can only shout one guy out, but I got to say, if you want to hear some more stuff like this, kind of a similar vein, R.L. Burnside, if you've never checked him out, he's got some really good kind of more recent, like early 2000 stuff that his grandson kind of produced to be more contemporary, but his older tracks are just Southern love and comfort and really good. But I appreciate it, man. I love this one. I had to share.
Thank you.
Brooklyn?
Yeah. So similar to kind of Jeff and Andrew, I had never heard of Ted Hawkins before, but like when you showed me like the acoustic version of Watch Your Step, I really kind of enjoyed it because it reminded me a lot of like Nick Drake and like that songwriter circle kind of vibe to it as well. Similar to Take You Back to Eden. It's arranged kind of back and forth. Like it usually has like a soft song, then an upbeat song. Like Bring It Home Daddy, I think has a really cool swing. I think like the silliest song is Don't Lose Your Cool. Like I heard this song. Yeah. I could immediately see you miming the backing vocals in the back with like the biggest like grin on your face. I just think it's so fucking like tongue in cheek. Who Got My Natural Comb? I know we talked about that earlier. That one reminds me of like songs that are just like developed out of a jam. Like it starts with the bass line, then you add the guitar, then you add the drums, and it's just I love it when a good thing comes together. And then like I think Sorry You're Sick does like it probably peels back the most layers in any of his songwriting. It kind of gets into like stories about like I think it's like his mother, or someone in the family. But then like you kind of get the reprise of Watch Your Step, and I like how the horns kind of like really elevate the chorus the next time around. I'll say my favorite song for the end because I don't know if it's going to be the popular one as well. But like just the opening of the acoustic version as well. It reminded me of like, you know how in fucking Bad Times at the El Royale, Nick Offerman is there at the beginning of the movie for like the first like 45 seconds, and it kind of gives you like a synopsis of the movie. It kind of does that for me. It's like a quick little like, okay, here's a preview of what's to come. And I really digged it. Even like the softer stuff, like Peace and Happiness was really cool. Yeah, and like Sweet Baby was all right, and yeah. Oh, sorry, and so one actual last thing. My favorite line in the entire album was actually in the Lost Ones. I am a big boy and I'm not supposed to cry.
God, yeah.
I think there are a lot of producers that are like, hey, let's change that line to something else.
Great shout for Bad Times at the El Royale. No one's talking about that movie. It had merit. It was good. I like that one. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a film lover's movie right there.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on the Lost Ones real quick because that one really does pack a lot of emotional weight to it. It's the one that is the one song on the album that just like right away did remind me of Sam Cooke. Because it's got that emotional like soulful tension in his performance. Like it feels like he's holding back the emotions as he's singing it, where it has this like beautiful like guitar that's playing at the same time. That piece is just phenomenal. I wish I had talked about it more, honestly. Anyone have any final thoughts on Watch Your Step by Ted Hawkins? Doesn't seem like it. All right. Hank, we're going to start with you on this one since this is your album. Favorite, least favorite, score?
I think I got to go. My favorite is still I'm going to dance with the one who brought me. I got to go with Sweet Baby. I just love that song. That was my number 2 song of last year. I can just play it again and again. And then like least favorite song, like, I guess Stop Your Crying just isn't like one that I go back to very often. You could say something like TWA, which is, again, just a 50-second jingle, but I love it. Like, I don't know. So I will say, I will go with Stop Your Crying, but I dig that song. And then I'm not afraid. I got one opportunity to bring an album. I'm bringing a 10. It's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Nice.
I'm gonna go next. Because I real quick with TWA, I also kind of like love that.
Right? Like, it has so much charm.
It should not work.
It almost feels
works
unfair
so
to
well.
say it's the worst.
I know. It's like, well,
Just
like,
because
of course.
So I'm not going to say it's the worst, in fact.
Okay.
So I agree with you, actually. Sweet Baby is my favorite song on this one. There's just something, it's kind of got that Drifters, the Drifters kind of sound with like like almost Spanish guitars, and like just the entire instrumentation on that song is so good. I'm going to say it because I heard someone else bring it up earlier. And when I say it's my least favorite, I'm not saying it's bad. I still think that it's very good. It's just my least favorite on the album, and that's Put It Across.
Okay. Hey, yeah, I hear you, man.
It's really good, but there are some moments in it. It's like the one song where like the lyrics don't sit with me as well as it does on the rest of the album, but it's still a really good song. And I'm gonna be honest. I am fighting between like a 9 and a 9.5 on this one. I think I'm good. You know what? No, screw it. I'm gonna be positive. 9.5. 9.5.
Yes.
Please check this album out. It is absolutely fantastic. Let's go to Brooklyn next.
All right. So my favorite song is actually one of the softer ones as well, but it's near the end. It's I Gave Up All I Had. It's actually been the song that's been stuck in my head since listening to it. I love the harmony of it and like the bite that he puts into like all the good things that make me glad. And it just had a nice kind of like nice soft kind of feel to it. My least favorite, I think, would actually be If You Love Me. It's I would say like, and like not even necessarily say that it's bad. I think it's just the tomatoes on the club sandwich of this album. I'm gonna pick them off. Yeah, I'm gonna pick them off. But it's for you. But if it's for you, like if you like them, I'm not gonna judge you.
Score.
Oh, score. Yeah, let's give it a 9. Let's give it a 9.
All right, Jeff. What are your thoughts on Watch Your Step?
All right, so favorite song on this album, Brooklyn actually took it. I Gave Up All I Had. That I would say I'm a sucker for harmonies, you know, and that to me just it's like it was just such a sweet like chef's kiss kind of thing there, and it was just the perfect balance off of one another, and just like the flow of it, and it's a nice toe tapper, and it's one to easily sing along with. Worst, I know it's cheeky, but Don't Lose Your Cool just didn't really do it for me with that one. I think
that one almost.
Nothing wrong with that.
Go to bed. There is nothing wrong with Don't Lose Your Cool.
Well, no. Okay, so
that was almost mine as well.
You just don't like fun songs, Jeff. You just
no.
I'm with Jeff. That was almost mine as well.
I'm loving this.
Listen, it's not that it's a bad song. I think it's just badly produced. I would say because the backing "Don't Lose Your Cool" is a little too loud, and it's kind of like drowning out the main part a little bit, which I get why you like that, but it's almost it's tone it back just a scotch a little bit, like take it down from an 8 to about a 7.5, maybe 6 even, you know. But that's like the one song that kind of didn't work for me. Otherwise, though, this album, this was a breath of fresh air. I was happy to listen to this one. This gets a 9 easily.
Oh, you guys are beautiful.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much for bringing that album. So we're closing with me. And I picked something. I think was a little bit different from what I think people most expect from me, yet still having very natural Barr tendencies. So I picked Beloved Paradise Jazz by McKinley Dixon. So I first discovered McKinley Dixon a few years ago off of his album For My Mama and Anyone Who Looked Like Her. And I thought it was just like an incredible album. The rhyme schemes, the production, the instrumentation, and McKinley Dixon himself is such a presence on the mic and such a smart, like poetic writer that it immediately resonated with me, even though it wasn't necessarily for me. And then this album came out, and it's kind of a coda to that album. But my God, like the way that this album just sounds is incredible. McKinley Dixon is just firing on all cylinders. There's like so many different like rap cadences and like flows that he's doing here, but they all just work incredibly well, I think. The horns on this album,
Yes.
oh my God, they soar. And there's like, I think clarinet in here as well that also just sounds absolutely incredible. But the lyrics on this thing, I got to bring up two in particular. On the story so far, and I'm gonna have to like censor some things because I'm white.
Watch yourself, Barr.
Yeah, no. I'm replacing the word. You'll know which word it is. Until the day that you died, until the day that I do this until the day that I die. My homeboy cringe when he hear fireworks in July. You ain't need to know why. I just hope you recover. His mother miss him, and I do, and I miss him too. And then there's on Tyler Forever. There is the line about even the poets lie. Like, here it is. I'm sure if he were here now, he'd say that that's just unheard of. I'd laugh and say, yeah, you're right. It's probably true. Then sitting on his floor, I realize poets lie too. How you parallel that hell that comes with writing stories to the tales of triumph, fight, and even oftentimes glory. Just like the words just flow and connect so beautifully well, and it's just incredibly well written. This album was easily one of my favorites of last year. I thought it was just an incredible piece from an artist that not a lot of people recognize and truly really need to. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on this album.
I fucking loved this album.
Let's go.
I'm like, yeah, obviously, I've never heard of this guy ever. But it's like, all right, we got a clean half-hour album. I'm ready to dive in, and then I just played it again when it was over the first time because I could have had more. I was eating so well this whole time, and I looked into the guy's story. Like, this is all Beloved Paradise Jazz are three of Toni Morrison's poetry books, and that's the Tony that's being referred to in the opening track. I was just like. And the instrumentals, my God, this feels like someone's kind of magnum opus, and this guy's just getting his foot in the door. So what is he going to do once he's got like everything behind him? I can't wait. I dug every track on this. Of course, I have like a least favorite, but pretty much all the features were unreal. Like starting with Hanif, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Hanif.
Hanif, starting with Hanif, all the way down to the end. Like, I loved Celine Hayes. I really dug Gay Guevara. Like, yeah, this was tight. And I will be listening to it beginning to end again because it plays so well like that. You don't know where one track starts and another one ends. I'm excited to listen to this one again.
Nice.
Bro,
anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go next. I'll start off with Hanif Reed's Tony because even the last album that you had pitched, Andrew, I think it was like the Navigator.
By Hooray for the
and,
Aircraft.
And that one was at a pretty somber one. And I was like, okay, like we'll see what happens with this one. This one does not do that. It's very bold and kind of in your face, and it kind of carries out momentum throughout it. The influences that I found in particular were delivery-wise. He reminds me a lot of like Lin-Manuel Miranda, and maybe it's just in like the vocal qualities of him in particular. But the production-wise, I actually get a lot of like Dr. Dre influence, in particular how he uses the strings and the horns. Sun I Rise, I think it's fucking incredible, especially like how they delay the kind of the adding of the string and drum kit and whatnot. I think that's a really good way to mix a hip hop song. There's also some like incredible lines in Sun I Rise. In particular, I think the second verse is probably my favorite verse in the whole album. Where is it here? Fuck around and find out I'm walking with death. Right hand my dominant, but ain't afraid to use left. I think I like kind of pun intended packs a punch. But then you have like Live from the Kitchen Table, my favorite line of any of the albums that we talked about, because I think it's really smart. Where the currency for meals is often the laugh that's exchanged in. Yeah, and I was just like, man, and like especially, I think it's safe to say now, as like a society, we don't really go to the dinner table as often. We're so fast paced that I think those qualities are often kind of taken for granted. I hate how catchy Tyler Forever is. It just reminded me of a Millie, and I'm like, I hate a Millie, but this is a much better version of a Millie. Dedicated to Tarfeather, I thought was really cool. Has another cool line in it. Journal entries from when the Heat had us buzzing. Found out one boy was superhuman, the other simply wasn't. I like that, like the kind of rhyme scheme. Jalen Brown's voice on Beloved Paradise Jazz, I thought was really nice and somber, kind of given everything else. Have you shown me Run, Run, Run before?
Yes, it was in that playlist I gave you.
It was in that playlist. Okay, yeah, because it's like, I've heard this before. And, that's the only other influence that I think where it comes from somewhere else. Run, Run, Run reminds me a lot of like a Tribe Called Quest. And I think just kind of how the keys are mixed in it and whatnot. But yeah, I had a pleasant time.
All right, Jeff.
All right, let's bring this out. So I'm not as familiar with like the new like age of rap. Like this is like kind of like something like I'm very much laying in my old school ways. I can't watch this right now because he's just making faces. I love it. But this was a breath of fresh air because I'm not a fan of today's current rap scene. I think it just kind of changes. Everybody seems to be kind of doing the same exact thing. And that's where I'm kind of like off put in a way when everybody's like, oh, you got to listen to this new rap act. I'm like, I kind of roll my eyes a little bit. I'm like, all right, let's see what it is. This was a breath of fresh air, finally. And it's funny that Brooklyn mentioned like Dr. Dre and like or stuff like that. Because the best like comparison I had was Bone Thugs and Harmony. It had a lot of vibes like that, and I was like trying to pinpoint what it would be, and I was like I find myself going back to Bone Thugs and Harmony, like kind of like having like those mellow, like nice choruses, but also those hard hitting verses. I'm gonna go back to Live from the Kitchen Table, primarily on Gace Guevara's?
I think that's what it is, but I'm not positive.
When he said, early memories of you, metal detectors, pops staring off into space because of his metal contested, and then basically saying, what should have been tears of joy seemed like an awkward moment. What should have been constant love was just the same as all else. That just hit. Like, that's like kind of like a wow. That's people really felt that one. I felt that one big time in it. I love the fact that we mentioned too, like the arrangement in general, the horns. You're talking to a trumpet player back here, that's it. Those horns just hit so well, and the fact that you can rap over something that complex and that layered, and it just made it all the more worthwhile and much more enjoyable. It's such a layered album, and the more I listened to it, the more I found myself wanting to listen more and just see what I missed the last time. So I really love this album. This was really good.
Yeah, and for an album that's just like 2 minutes, under a half hour, it's so easy
Oh
to
yeah.
get back to it.
Oh yeah. Like the fact that I'm on like 28 minutes, I'm like, wow, this is gonna fly through. I'm like, am I gonna really remember this? But no, it's stuck with me big time.
Yeah, there, I just there's a lot of complexities in this album. What was the name of the one song that I'm missing? Mezzanine Trippin'. That I okay. I really want to know people's thoughts on Mezzanine Trippin' because it is the most dissonant.
I'm gonna hold my cards.
Okay, because it is the most dissonant song on the album. It is very off kilter to the point where it is almost avant-garde, sort of. But there's something about it that just like, and when he comes in with like, Jeff, earmuff your kid right now.
They're going to bed
so hard with fuck 12. Just like that one extra little layer element, just like it really hits so hard on that one. I just really want to quickly hear people's thoughts on that if you're not saving it for the rest of it.
I really dug it. I don't have a great oeuvre of rap, but I like a lot of what I hear. They remind me of this song reminds me of The Coup. Or if people are familiar, Boots Riley.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yes.
This is what freestyling in the Fortune 500 club or something. That's one of the songs that I love. But I mean, God, I'm a big movie guy. I learned about The Coup through Sorry to Bother You, which is just the most in-your-face, aggressive, like, are you fucking listening movies I've ever seen, and a great soundtrack to boot. But this reminded me of a lot of their stuff. Like, it is just, if you are not ready for this, you will be left behind and you will not be missed. And it's like, all right, I'm in. Get me like a front row seat. I'm in. I really dug it.
Okay. One other act that I'd actually really like to not necessarily compare this to, but kind of like, kind of put out there is The Roots. Because a lot of this instrumentation is natural. It's like played right then and there, and it's just so cohesive in how many elements are going on in that instrumentation. Let's wrap this up. I'm gonna go first because it's my album. My favorite song on this album is Tyler Forever. The first half where it just goes so hard and that hook is just so catchy, and then the facade drops away and he goes into like the real McKinley, reminiscing on his late friend Tyler and what he would think of this act that he's putting on. I thought it was just such a smart move. Like both parts are just like so good. Yeah, that's my favorite one. This one's hard for me to pick a least favorite because I love all of the songs on this album. So the one that I probably go to the least, and I'm not going to include the opening track because I view that more as a prologue. It's Sun I Rise. I still think that's a great song. But it's probably the one I just happen to go back to the least often is all. Brooklyn made a face when I said that, so let's go to Brooklyn next. Oh, yeah. Score. It's a 9.5.
So yeah, I'm kind of torn on my favorite song. Sun I Rise is actually one of them, so that's why I was kind of surprised. I think I'm going to go, though, with Dedicated to Tarfeather, just because I think both of the verses there grab me a little bit more. You were mentioning how I feel about Mezzanine Trippin'. It is my least favorite.
Which makes sense, honestly.
In my notes of all the songs, my one word for it is nope. About halfway in, I was just like, no, this is I can't. I do not like this style. Give me the jazzy stuff that's really kind of cool and kind of just throws me off. But yeah, and then like my only other gripe would be like kind of like how they separate the story so far from the interlude to the spoken version, or I guess the actual song version of it. It's like, why not just compile that together? Because I feel like you can do that.
Okay. And score?
Score 9 out of 10.
All right, Jeff, let's go to you next.
All right. Favorite track on this one. It was between Sunrise and what I actually settled on, which is Live from the Kitchen Table. I thought this was just such a layered track that just worked really well. The fact that the instrumentation with the verses just works so well, and the lyrics just really hit really nicely. And I already kind of revealed it. Yeah, Mezzanine Tippin'. I think this was like kind of the one that just to me felt the most like current rap right now. Like it just felt so much like of the time in a way that it just kind of just drew me out. I'm like, nah. Like I want you to go back to what made you unique with this jazz and with this like almost Tonight Show kind of like instrumentation, but way more layered Tonight Show instrumentation. But a score for this one, I'm gonna give this a solid. It's between an 8.5 and a 9 for me. Like I'm gonna say somewhere within that range. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna say on the lower end, but 8.5.
Okay. And Hank, close us out.
Oh man, you're killing me. I can't pick a least favorite. There's okay. Well, here's the problem. So Hanif reads Tony, you just can't count it. And you also can't count the story so far. So that leaves you with 8. And then I have my favorite. I'm gonna go Run, Run, Run. I really just dug it. It just gets you going. But then it was between Run, 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 Sun I Rise, and Tyler Forever. I loved what Mezzanine Tippin' was doing. I wasn't going to make it a favorite, but I love what it was doing. And then it's even I'm going to say Dedicated to Tar Feather, but only because I have to pick one. The instrumentals on that one makes it impossible for me to say it's not good. I love it, but it's just the one I think I will find myself listening to isolated the least. But I'm telling you, this to me is like a 28-minute long song that I can't skip around in. I do. Every song needs the other. So I will match your score of mine. I'm saying a 9.5. This was extremely impressive. And I genuinely didn't know what to get yourself into. I loved the album cover. And I was like, okay, all right, I can get into this. And then it's like instantly, boom, Sun I Rise after Hanif reads Tony. I was completely hooked and they never let go.
All right. Please listen to For My Mama and Anyone Who Looked Like Her.
I definitely want to check this one out too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But guys, that's it. That's that's all of the albums. Real quick, just what was your favorite album that was brought to the table by someone other than you? I'm gonna go first. It's Watch Your Step by Ted Hawkins. Like that one is just like directly up my alley. So I'm gonna go with that one. Brooklyn.
Even though they tied in score, Watch Your Step and Beloved Paradise Jazz, I think I got to go with Beloved Paradise Jazz. Kind of similar to what Hank was saying. I think it was Hank was saying. It's like just a 28-minute song, front to back.
All right. Hank, how about you?
I'm going with Beloved Paradise Jazz as well. Easy pick. I really, there was something to love about all the albums. Honey, whatever. But
Scott Harvey, sorry.
I'm not gonna lie. But
just call
the fight. Songs I liked on that one, but no, Beloved Paradise Jazz. That's going in the rotation immediately, and I will be checking out his other stuff.
And Jeff.
Even though it got the lower score compared to Ted Hawkins, I'm going to go with Beloved Paradise Jazz. This was actually a really fun, refreshing album because it's so unconventional of like what I would normally listen to. Like I know I do listen to rap every so often, but this was such a fresh take, and it kind of gives me like, maybe there is hope for today's rap today. So it makes me want to explore more, and that's always a good sign of a good artist.
Okay, well, that's the first sweep, honestly. So thank you all for watching so much. Jeff, Hank, thank you guys both for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. We'd love to come back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm you let me know. I'll be around.
Mhm.
Oh, you guys will definitely be on the show again. Brooklyn, any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so. Pretty good, pretty good list so far. Yeah.
Cool, clean, simple, to the point. I love it. Thank you all for watching the turntable. We will be back next month. We have a few people in mind, but if you would like to be on an episode, please feel free to contact Glenn or myself, and we will see what we can do. Until then, guys, thank you so much for watching, and keep on rocking.
Very safely.
Skirt.